10 o'clock in the morning. On October the 24th, if you want to know.
Gandalf.
Yes, I'm here. And you're lucky to be here, too.
Hi.
And there he is, folks. Welcome to Torn Tuesday. We'll bring that graphic up later. It is October the 24th, a little past 10 in the morning, and 11 and 12. It is 5 in the evening here in sunny Southern California. Welcome to your weekly dose of all things Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. Clifford, how are you today?
Hey, I'm great. I'm trying to make some adjustments to my speakers so I can actually hear you through these. Hold on a second.
The chat room is getting active.
Hello, chat room.
I'm
trying to hear you.
Otaku and everybody else.
Now I hear you.
We are live
look, everybody
on
is here in the chat.
Twitch and YouTube and Facebook and X as
We
long
sure
as they'll
are.
have us.
Oh, no. Hey, you know what? It's time to say out loud, I'm leaving Twitter in the next 10 days or 7 days. And I might as well just say to everybody right now, you can find me at the other place where the sky is blue. And we're going to be just trying to talk to other people at other places. Like, I'm going to get more involved in our Discord. I swear to you, I will, because the best people are already there chatting and having a great community. And it's so much nicer than dealing with the twisted hellscape that remains of what Twitter used to be. But it's good to have my technical problems fixed. I got the lights working. I've got the microphone and everything working properly. Can you hear me okay, dear audience? It's lovely to see you today. And Justin, my friend, how do you like these? How do you like these? Do you recognize what character from Halloween, a famous Halloween story, has these sculpted dice that look like skulls? Look familiar?
Scary
Name the great Halloween character. I bet you people in the live chat will eventually figure this out. Who, out of great Halloween villains, has these sculpted dice? And here's a clue. When he rolls this, he says, "Snake eyes." Ooh. So that's a little clue for who that might be. Halloween is almost upon us, and I'm afraid that this is going to be our last full broadcast before next week's wild festivities. You're right. Thank you, Jen. You got it. Jean got it. She got that correct. But what are we going to do? Are we going to do a big, long, extra special show today? Are we going to do a show next week when everyone's trick-or-treating?
Well, I'll be here because I'm not trick-or-treating. I'm too old for that, and I don't have any kids. So I'll be here with you guys. Cliff obviously has other things to do. But why is the video on YouTube? Well,
it's Halloween, and who's going to be watching? Who's going to be watching on Halloween night is the question.
Elrond. That's what I want to know. Why, when I pulled up that clip of October the 24th, did it cut out low opacity Elrond? This is his holiday.
Low opacity Elrond is one of our all-time favorite memes. I'm so glad he's back year after year. And it's great to have him here.
Rings of Power included a crossfade in their first episode, I believe, with the new Elrond. So I appreciate that Amazon is continuing the legacy of low opacity Elrond, because he always deserves a continuation in the legendary.
Really funny. That's really cute and really funny. I wish that, I wish I could be such a great part of pop culture. Hugo Weaving is in so many memes. He is in so many memes on the internet.
You know who else is in so many memes?
So great.
The birthday boy. Today is Charlie Vickers' birthday. Yes, of course, our man Halbrand, a.k.a. spoiler alert, since 63% of you never finished the show. That's Sauron. I don't know if you heard.
Right.
I hate to spoil Rings of Power for you.
Big spoilers, dude. Come on.
I know. Big spoilers. I apologize, but it is Charlie Vickers' 31st
It's actually Charlie Vickers' birthday. That's
it
fabulous, really.
Charlie's birthday, as far as we know. We can't get any confirmation except for publicly available Wikipedia entries and his driver's license. Don't ask me how. Don't ask me why.
Who's got his?
But there we go.
The internet has his driver's license. You're kidding.
The internet is a deep well of information if you know where to look. So happy birthday,
I'll say.
Charlie Vickers. You know who else's birthday it was this weekend, Cliff?
This past weekend?
It was John Bell. Yes, you remember him as Bane, son of Bard. Bane, son of Bard.
That's right.
It was
John
his
Bell's
birthday. And turns out
wow.
most people, a lot of people didn't know he's an Outlander. John Bell, yes, Bane, son of Bard, who became a human bow, tension bow, I guess. I don't know, part of it, is also an Outlander. So happy birthday to John Bell. But the big birthday of the weekend, Cliff.
Yes.
65 years old. Our guy, Viggo Mortensen, or King.
That's right. Viggo's birthday, very recent.
Happy birthday.
Fantastic.
Viggo Mortensen. We appreciate his friendship, his fellowship. We appreciate his son convincing him to do the movie Lord of the Rings. We appreciate Henry and his friendship to the website all these years. It's just so wonderful. And if you haven't had a chance, you have to find, I think it's like $2.99 to rent. It's like $3. It's cheaper than a cup of coffee. Go find a way to rent Viggo's movie called Falling. I saw this at Sundance, of course.
What a beautiful movie.
It has a digital release. Yeah, just rent it. I don't think it's on any of the streaming services, but if you look for Viggo Mortensen's movie Falling, because he wrote, produced, directed, acted,
and starred in. Yes.
And composed all the music. And the soundtrack is stunningly poetic. And I
really
highly recommend, once you watch this movie and how Viggo Mortensen is able to direct, write, produce, and score a compelling human drama that touches all the emotions of aging and taking care of your parents and dysfunctional families and everything like that, you will want him to be involved behind the scenes in Lord of the Rings going forward. I promise you, once you watch this movie Falling, and now it's the better time than ever because it's his 65th birthday, you will see the talent of his scoring ability, his writing ability, his directing ability, and we already know his acting ability.
You know how brilliant
it's huge.
That movie is. It's really, really an excellent character study. So well done and well crafted and in such a thoughtful way. And I really loved interviewing both Viggo and his son, Henry. That was such a great interview.
Do you think he kept up on his sword training, Cliff?
I can imagine he did. He's had to do a lot of other fight scenes since he was in front of the camera doing Aragorn. He had other fight scenes too. So yeah, he's a quite capable actor with his own fight choreography, his own sword work. The original rumor is still true. We know that he slept with his sword. When he was on location in New Zealand, he wouldn't leave that sword by his side.
There was a lot of sleeping around on all of the Hobbit and Lord of the Rings movies, and none more poetic than Viggo and his sword.
Yes, his sword.
But
yes.
I really want Viggo to write and direct a young Aragorn story, whether that's
that'd be the coolest.
A single season of an Amazon spinoff. Maybe it's a feature film, part of the new Warner Brothers deal. I want Viggo to tell young Aragorn's story. I trust in his storytelling and his filmmaking abilities. So much so after watching the movie Falling. Who else?
I'm glad you mentioned it. It's a happy birthday to Viggo, and what a great accomplishment that film was. I'm really glad you mentioned it today. It's very good.
Cliff, today is like the 110th day of the SAG strike, which is still going strong, and there it is, the other king. Speaking of Aragorn, Aragorn's ancestor, Lloyd Owen, Elendil himself from Rings of Power. Elendil tweeted or posted this on his
Wow.
Instagram stories today. SAG after Strong. Now, I want to remind you that Rings of Power Season 2 kept on filming because most of the actors were Actors Equity only, and they were not SAG. Lloyd Owen, here he is SAG. Elendil is SAG. And Amazon made sure to wrap up filming before SAG started striking. Let me repeat that. Most of the cast of Rings of Power is Actors Equity. It's a British thing, not involved in a strike. But Amazon was quick to rush and finish filming before SAG started striking, now 110 days ago. Because some key actors, very, very few, I think there's only 1 or 2 or 3 actors in Rings of Power that are actual SAG. And here we are. Here's the proof.
Yes.
Lloyd Owen Elendil is a SAG actor, and he's going SAG after Strong. Cliff, I believe this means because they rushed filming Rings of Power Season 2 to finish before the SAG strike, I think this means Elendil has a lot more to do in Season 2.
I am so pleased. I put hashtag solidarity in the chat. I'm so pleased with him presenting his voice for the other union, his sister union. It was interesting. There were some other TV shows that stopped production when the Screen Actors Guild began to strike, and also some that completed a couple of weeks of work here and there, and then they stopped production. But now we know that most everything they're doing for Season 2 is now post. They're all doing post-production now, which is sound, visual effects, editing, and all these other post-production things. And there will ultimately be the moment when they need to do ADR, a lot more recording and new dialogue will be required.
And reshoots.
Because the writers reshoots
remember, there are a lot of reshoots, and
Yes.
they cannot do reshoots with rewritten scripts. And now that the writer's strike is over, we expect the writers to be writing those reshoot scripts, even if the actors cannot be booked for it yet.
Do you think, Justin, that there ever was a prickly pear kind of situation for those actors who were in one union and wanted to join the other, and yet were in a pinch because the producers and the showrunners are saying, we got to get these things done, but they're like, no, I don't want to mess up my chances of joining SAG later on. Can you imagine a scenario where that might have happened?
It has happened because several actors were asked in the last couple months, within the last 110 days, a few actors were asked to come back and re-record some dialogue, and that would be against SAG rules. So the production of Rings of Power Season 2 has jeopardized some of the actors on their future prospects working in Hollywood, not just the UK and Europe, working in Hollywood. If you're not SAG, you probably won't work in Hollywood here in the States. So it's a career choice and everything else. Other news, Amazon
unless of course you had a waiver. If you were in an indie project, there weren't
any waivers for Amazon because it was one of the most struck studios. Speaking of Amazon,
absolutely,
it just announced, Prime Video has announced that the release date for their next big sci-fi fantasy TV series is April 12th next year. And of course,
based on Fallout, the video game. My goodness
based
gracious.
on Fallout. It is being directed by Jonathan Nolan, who I'm a big fan of. Of course, he was the showrunner on Westworld.
He made Westworld absolutely magical, didn't he?
And, of course, he is Christopher Nolan's brother and writing partner. And Jonathan Nolan, the showrunner of Fallout here, is responsible for many of Christopher Nolan's screenplays, including Memento, The Dark Knight, Batman Begins, Inception. You can go down the list. Jonathan Nolan is one of the best writers, and I think we've talked about this in the previous episode. Jonathan Nolan is one of the best writers when it comes to the passage of time and differences in time. And I think about Inception, I think about The Dark Knight, I think about Memento. I think about all these movies that Jonathan Nolan has worked on. Even Westworld is a great example. You have eternally young robots that never age, and you're playing with time. And I think one of the most interesting aspects of Rings of Power in the Second Age that they have not yet even begun to explore is the difference in time. And I think that's, Cliff, you're one of the ones that have gotten most excited about how elves view time, and how Sauron views time versus how Numenor views time, and how the men and dwarves view time.
But how very little of that territory is going to be explored with the way that they are compressing everything in the show, which so many times you have said, stop complaining about time compression. It's not a big deal. And yet, if you want to explore some of that thematic content that you were just discussing, you are going to have like the gravity of that awareness be made upon people, people who live for thousands of years versus someone who lives for less than 80 years, 80 if they're lucky.
And
if they don't get a sword in the back.
And what battles they choose to fight, and how they corrupt, how Sauron may choose to corrupt different races of peoples of Middle-earth depends on how that race views time. And I feel like this is untapped, unexplored. They haven't even hinted at it. They haven't touched it. There's nothing in season 1 to imply that this show will touch time in any capacity. But we know for a fact now that Rings of Power, that Jonathan Nolan, the current master of time-based storytelling, is currently under contract with Amazon.
I love your advocacy for Mr. Nolan. I always have. I appreciate your advocacy for him, but I'll tell you something. The only tiny whiff of it in season 1 of the men of Numenor behaving in a certain, unpleasant or antagonistic way towards Galadriel when she first arrives. Remember that moment, everybody in the audience, when Galadriel first arrives and she says something in the dialogue referencing to, once upon a time, the men of Numenor had a much stronger, healthier relationship with the Eldar, with the elves. And now they don't. Now they don't respect that relationship. And that's the only hint of it. That's the only hint that any of the Numenorians are looking at her like, she's an elf. She's 7,000 years old. This is totally different. But it's not mentioned in any conversation or between any characters about how the culture or the royal line or the royal family or anybody feels about immortality versus mortality. And Sauron is banking on corrupting Pharazôn. Our Pharazôn is going to be so corrupted by wanting to chase the dragon's tail of immortality, and it hasn't even been brought up yet.
It hasn't even been brought up. So everything,
I know.
Every interview you see with the showrunners saying, "Hey, we just wanted to use this season to set up the series." Well, they didn't set up anything to do with time, and time is one of the most important motivators and drivers of the entire narrative of the Second Age. So the fact that they didn't set up any of it. In fact, I think The Hobbit currently has more implications about time. Remember when Lee Pace as Thranduil says, "Don't worry, I have all the time.
I can wait."
It
was the only, it was the only time that dialogue was deliberately filled with that entendre, not just double entendre. It was blatant, in your face, single entendre. I have an immortality in front of me. I can wait. And you can stay rotting in the dungeon, Thorin.
And just those couple lines of dialogue was more emphasis on time than anything in the 8 hours of season 1 of Rings of Power. Anyway, Miss Thing. So April 12th, there were some gossip, some rumors that Amazon was speeding up production on season 1 to hopefully maybe get it out in time to qualify for next year's Emmy Awards and things like that. Maybe they wanted to speed it up and get it out before season 2 of House of the Dragon. Well, we can basically kibosh all of that because Fallout is their huge very expensive TV show from Jonathan Nolan. It's a huge video game series, one of the most respected video game series out there. So this is a huge show, and the fact that it's going to be
Are you
8
suggesting
episodes,
that that's going to
on
be
for
their
2
next
weeks,
crown
2
jewel?
months. That's going to be their big crown jewel for April
okay.
and May, which means I think this confirms, no doubt, that Rings of Power is not getting released any earlier than September of next year. So I think this is the final nail. Cliff, you brought this one to my attention. Today, Daniel Radcliffe announced a new movie documentary that he's starring and producing in that will be on HBO, the Warner Brothers channel. Remember, Warner Brothers owns HBO. So it's interesting that they're doing a documentary on one of Daniel's stunt doubles that got paralyzed in a stunt gone wrong. Cliff, do you want to tell us more?
Well, this is an unfortunate moment in the life of any professional stunt performer. This is the most, if you think about it, in the whole context of your career, in the whole context of years and years and years of doing safety rigging and checking the cables and working with the safety professionals and trying to always make sure that you're going to do it right the first time, and yet still have something spectacular in the footage that they can use for the movie or for the show. And in any stuntie's life, now, when you're down on the set in New Zealand, they don't call themselves stunt performers. They call themselves stunties. So if you're a stuntie, you're on that crew. And the fact is that David Holmes, this gentleman, had worked on the Harry Potter films, and things had gotten, I don't know how to say this, but he had gotten hurt. He'd gotten hurt quite badly on the show, working on the Harry Potter films. And he had been, there had been an explosion. There was a pyrotechnics set. And we've seen it all the time where they have mountains and mountains of professionals there with the fire marshal, with the safety crew, with everything set in place to try and not have this kind of thing happen. But if mistakes are made, if something happens, you never know. And it's just, it's a really sad and interesting story.
It's interesting that I saw some comments on social media of how much effort Daniel Radcliffe is putting toward making this movie, getting it out, putting it on a major platform in the face of you know, basically being a voice for those disabled people.
Absolutely. This film is about what this man's life was like doing gymnastics, and had a real career, a real specific career, before he ended up working as Harry Potter's double, doing, double. And there was a part in Deathly Hallows Part 1, an explosion that was it was all carefully rehearsed and planned, but the stunt sent him down to the ground, leaving him paralyzed from the chest down with, as it says here in the quote, a debilitating spinal injury that turned his life upside down. And, it's remarkable that the lead guy, Harry Potter, the lead guy, Daniel Radcliffe, who had gotten all the world's attention for being in front of the camera, is now using his considerable resources and his time to sit down and work with this wonderful performer and talk about his life and interview his family and the former crew that worked in the films. And it says the film reflects the universal themes of living with adversity, growing up, and the bonds that bind people together. And I'm just really impressed that Radcliffe was executive producer and worked so hard with director Dan Hartley and Sue Latimer to actually get this out. But I'm coming from a documentary point of view as well, as a a guy who once made a little indie film and tried to push hard and hard against a lot of obstacles and adversities that would have gotten in the way of the production ever seeing the light of day. Imagine people sitting in a room and saying, sorry, Daniel, we love you and we love Harry Potter, but we're not going to do such a Debbie Downer kind of story. We're not going to even touch this. So imagine people telling him no, and him being determined enough to go ahead and get it done. And because he's executive producer, we know that Daniel Radcliffe has put his own money into this. As a financer, that's one of the reasons why there's a difference between regular producer and executive producer. That term signifies that he's been on the financing end. So absolutely, Daniel Radcliffe is putting his money where his mouth is as an independent filmmaker to help these other directors tell the story of David Holmes. And it's really touching and very, very cool. So I'm connecting in my thoughts, obviously, to some of the other stunt performers who we reported on over the years who had been injured on the set of the season 1 of The Rings of Power. We have a couple of different stories from, do we not?
Yeah, there were two stunt women for Galadriel. There one, Alyssa Caldwell, got a brain injury. And there was another one, I forget her name. But 2 brain injuries, 2 brain surgeries on season 1 of Rings of Power, and we're hearing that there were tons more injuries on season 2. But a brain injury is just as can be just as debilitating as a physical injury like this. Paralyzing thing, and the chat room is saying that disabled people do need more advocates to help others become more aware and accepting of their disability. So
that's very true. I'm putting hearts in the chat because that is so true. This is just fascinating to me. There's so many people in the world who would support your project if it's a documentary, and I'm just speaking from nonfiction, from a documentary point of view. If you want to make a film like that, you need the right kind of support and the right kind of people to help you get it through to the end, all the way to the finish line, because it is a great, sometimes daunting task to get
it on HBO. I mean, this is Daniel Radcliffe really using his muscle, his power, his fame, and his money to
not everybody has
put this story and to face someone. Just the emotional impact of an actor recognizing imagine how Daniel feels personally. Imagine that Daniel feels personally connected to this person being hurt on his watch as his double, working with him all those years. And it's like, he's putting himself at risk for the sake of the Harry Potter franchise. And imagine that, Daniel somehow feels inextricably caught up in that. To that point, it must be crazy how it must be so impactful to actress Morfydd Clark to know that 2 of her stunt doubles had brain surgery on the behalf of her character. It almost, I wonder if Morfydd feels any strength to up her performance, knowing that so many people are getting injured on behalf of this character. So Morfydd it steps it up, maybe. I don't know. So thanks for pointing that out, and I'm looking forward to seeing this. But I think we should lighten the mood a little bit. Moving on, Bear McCreary has confirmed. There were rumors a few weeks ago, and no one would confirm it, but all the rumors were like, this is happening, it's already done. So Bear McCreary finally confirmed that he is scoring another fantasy franchise. Not just God of War, not just Rings of Power. He is now doing Percy Jackson and the Olympians.
Huge show.
Everyone, there's so much buzz about this show. The books are beloved. I mean, these books are huge.
I've never read them. Have you seen the original films? Any of there was a couple of feature
films.
Ignore the films.
Ignore the other films.
Really?
The buzz on this TV series is so big. And it means something big. when Disney's hiring Bear McCreary to score this.
I'll say.
Huge news. And I want to point out, because I think we've kind of mentioned this on this show a couple times and a lot in Discord, that Bear McCreary works with a big team. And unfortunately, due to how Hollywood works, credits only get so far, and Bear gets all the credit, and his team that actually does a lot of the work hardly ever gets credit. And it's not necessarily an issue. It's just an unfortunate fact of working in the music biz. And so I want to call out that I believe this is the first or second time in his entire Twitter history. Bear McCreary has been on Twitter 12, 15 years. I don't know. This is one of the first times where Bear has announced a new project that credits his team at Sparks and Shadows. There it is at the top.
He did it.
I am scoring Percy Jackson along with my brilliant team with Sparks and Shadows. I went back through his entire timeline. Actually, I just know how to use Twitter search really well. And I could only find 4 instances of Bear mentioning Sparks and Shadow. And he's never mentioned his team in announcing that he was doing a new project. So this is a huge step forward for Bear McCreary in crediting that he's got a whole team behind him. And I want to shout that out and give him credit where credit is due, because I love to see it. We love to see all those, again, back to stunt people, the invisible workers of this biz. No one knows the stunt doubles. All they see is Galadriel doing horse stunts. No one knows the musicians actually composing a lot of the work. They just see Bear McCreary's name. So I think, the actors, the names on the title get all the credit for all these hidden figures, as the documentary likes to call hidden figures.
Yeah, you know what? I learned a very, very long time ago about this phenomenon of a film director having a big team of people who work with them. And you will not going to believe who it was who first explained this to me. John Ottman, who people know as the guy who does all the motion picture scores and the editing for the X-Men films, the Bryan Singer films.
Yeah.
They're all edited by, and the score is composed by the same person. His name is John Ottman. He's written all this music for all these X-Men films and all these things, and shows. And we were friends, and it was 25 years ago. He sat down and said, "You're not going to believe this." And he was talking about his work on doing scores for the X-Men films. I was talking about something Danny Elfman was doing, and I was trying to make a comparative, saying, well, Tim Burton has this constant relationship with his favorite composer, Danny Elfman, and Brian has a really specific relationship with you as a composer. And John Ottman was the first person in the Hollywood business to say to me, he has a whole team of people working with him, and often there's a lot of people doing the legwork, and it ends up, because of credit arbitration and because of issues with agents and the contracts that they have, the people don't get proper credit all the time who actually do the composing, the orchestrations. And John said, I do all of it myself. He said, not only do I do all the orchestrations myself, but I cut my own music to my own cuts of editing the film because I'm the editor as well. He had to do both jobs. And that was the first time I learned about 25 years ago that every big name in the business who you think is a really, really big score composer, they are often working with a specific team of creative people who help them with a lot of edge, marginal work, filling out instrumentations, and orchestrating.
Howard
they do a lot
Shore
of work for them.
is not one of those people. Howard Shore has a really small team. Howard Shore does all the writing himself, and then he writes with his pen, on paper, and then hands that off to his assistant to digitize it so it can be emailed out to everybody. So it's just two different ways of working. Mm-hmm. One isn't right, one isn't wrong. It's just two different ways of working. and we've reported here that that was the big struggle for Howard Shore and Bear McCreary. And one of the reasons they didn't get along is because Howard Shore is one of those guys that just does all the work himself, and Bear McCreary has a whole team, and those two styles of working just don't mesh very well. And
intriguing.
We got what we want. We got what we got, and the music is one of the best parts of the show from both Howard Shore and Bear McCreary.
People in the chat, I'll back you up on that. All these folks in the chat who continue to say we're still shocked. All of us are still shocked that he didn't get a full nomination for the score of the show.
And honestly, I think one of the reasons is because everybody in the voting academy for the Emmys knows Bear works with a big old team of people.
Okay. And
I'm not saying this is the only reason, but I think one of the reasons that he got snubbed for the Emmys is because he didn't. Everybody knows his way of working. Why doesn't Danny Elfman have all the Oscars and Emmys on his plaque? I think for the same reason. Because they both have big teams. Speaking of Bear McCreary, I just wanted to shout
just mentioned Hans Zimmer has a big team, right?
Yeah, Hans Zimmer has a big team. So speaking of Bear McCreary, there was a big charity buzz for the ACLU. There was an charity auction for ACLU. And Bear McCreary provided signed musical score sheets from the Rings of Power.
How cool.
And Cliff, I have to point this out because we keep coming back to it. 37% is the number that everybody hates to hear. 37% is the completion rate Rings of Power. Well, folks, look at that screenshot. The estimated value that they were expecting from this charity auction was $1,000, and they got around $325, which is about as close to 37%. In fact, that would be 32.5%. Plus, I think there's a $25 shipping fee or something like that. So even in a charity, Rings of Power is still getting 37%. I'm sorry,
Justin. Oh my gosh, come on.
The Rings of
Terrible.
Power. You'll never escape the 37% completion rate.
If there's I'm just thinking weird memes. Years from now, we'll be coming up with the number 37, and we'll wink at each other.
Number. It's the magic number. 37. Well, Cliff, we got a few more things to talk about.
Before we get to Green Dragon gossip.
Well, that's the thing. Do we want to do the Green Dragon gossip now and then dive into our longer conversation about scrolls and visual effects and stuff? I think
all that stuff is so cool because it's getting talked about everywhere online. Everyone's talking about it. But why don't we do news first and then Green Dragon gossip properly at the end as the end segment? Let's do it.
We've got some big Green Dragon gossip at the end show. So carrying on with the news. Today, folks, is the release date for Return to Moria, and this is a video of Matt Rings playing the game.
Matt's
for 4
playing a
hours.
preview of it.
He was it is out now. You don't need it's out. You can buy it. It's on PC on the Epic Games Store. Geez, well, maybe I should open up the Epic Games Store and see how much it is. But Return to Moria is out. It is $39.99. So that's cheaper than the Gollum game was at release. So $40, and it's just a fun game. I just had this on in the background this afternoon as Matt was playing it for 4 hours, and it's just a lot of mining. It really is. Like you keep walking and you keep mining, and then you once you have enough materials, you build a new axe to mine harder walls. It's not like levels. There's not quests and levels where it's like, all right, go into this dungeon and go defeat this big thing. It's like, no, it's kind of a casual game, and it actually seems like it's more fun the more players you can have. Now that it's on PC, I can tell you it's up to 8 players at the same time. You can all play remotely. Just log in together, and you can play 1 player together, up to 8 players together, or you can play single player. But it's just a lot of running around, and then it's so much fun when you're like in these dark caves and you can only see by candlelight, and then you break through a wall and suddenly it opens into this huge old Moria thing, and there's swelling music and everything like that.
Well, this is so cool.
So,
now,
Return to Moria is out now. You can buy it. It's $39.99. I highly recommend it. I don't understand what the debate is between Epic Game Store and Steam. As far as I'm concerned, they're both exactly the same, and some gamers need to get over this PC versus Mac situation, because it's still a PC game. It doesn't even matter where you buy it. Okay. I don't remember anyone arguing like, oh, I bought mine at FuncoLand. Oh no, I bought mine at GameStop. Oh, I bought mine at Software Etc. Oh, I bought mine at Best Buy. No one ever argued what store you bought the game at. But for some reason, gamers love to argue over Epic Games Store. There was a comment early on in the show saying, asking, should Gimli even have a large role in the Moria video game? He should be Lord of the Glittering Caves. Well,
I was just about to mention that question.
Well,
yes.
if you actually play the game, you don't even have to play the game. If you just go to the YouTube and type in the trailer that we showed last week, you would know that Gimli starts off the game literally at the Glittering Caves,
and
when
then
he
comes
gets
out
an owl with a note that says, "Come back to Moria. All of the clans are uniting to reclaim Moria." And that's literally the name of the game. Return to Moria.
That's right.
So it's in the title of the thing. Gimli is at the Glittering Caves and he gets called back. And then when you start the game and you create your character, you can choose where you're from, including the Glittering Caves. So everything is in lore. And as I was watching this, the chat room was going wild. There were some people saying, well, that's not in the lore. Well, then other fans would chime in and said, actually, in this chapter, in this book, it is in the lore. And the orcs really were there. And the goblins really were there. And there really was alpacas underneath the mountain. I don't know why, but it makes sense. So you'd be surprised how much in the game is actually justified and true to the lore. So if you just want to spend 4 hours watching someone play the game, there's a ton of Let's Play videos on TikTok and YouTube today and all week. And, of course, Nerd of the Rings has his 4-hour playthrough currently on YouTube. By the way, he's nearing 992,000. I'm sorry. He is so close to 1 million subscribers on YouTube. So please tell all your friends, create a new account. Let's get Matt, Nerd of the Rings, to 1 million subscribers, because we'd love nothing more than
that. Would be very brilliant. And if there's anybody who could do that, it's the worldwide Tolkien community who could do that. That's us. Definitely us. And I love that the game is out so quickly and you can dive right in and just start playing. I just don't have a PC, so I would have to use a PC emulator on my MacBook.
So. And then the PlayStation game will come out. PlayStation version will come out next month, and the Xbox version will come out a few months after that. I think Xbox is going to come out in like February or March or something like that. They said early next year.
Okay.
All right. Cliff, something that lit up the fandom this week. Remember the scroll?
Oh boy, the scroll. Don't we remember the scroll?
Here's a screenshot.
Yeah.
Remember one of the most important pieces of paper that the Rings of Power Season 1 focuses on, that Galadriel and Elrond discover together. No, Galadriel discovers in the library in Numenor and then takes it back with her, and then Elrond discovers it in the final episode, and starts reading it. The scroll that shows the lineage of the Southland kings.
Indeed.
And why is this scroll so important that it's seen across multiple episodes of season 1 of Rings of Power? Is because the entire narrative of season 1 is driven by Galadriel wanting to install the rightful king of the Southlands, whom she supposedly came across on a raft in the storm. But for some reason, Galadriel wants to give up on her quest for Sauron and just wants to reinstall Halbrand as king of the Southlands.
And that is connected to the Southlands facing a threat of Adar and the orcs. So she thinks that Adar and the orcs are going to come in and start doing a bunch of Sauron-type business, and putting a king in place in the Southlands would be, would be very helpful, would it not?
It would be very helpful. And
it would go a long way towards bolstering the defense of the region and getting the people to support themselves and defend themselves. So yeah, of course. And guess what?
Then by the end of the episode, by the end of the season, when Galadriel's being seduced by Sauron, Elrond stumbles upon that same scroll, looks at it, and says, "Hey, there's something fishy about this." And then goes to confront her, and that's the end of the season. So the scroll has a big thing. Well,
and he doesn't mention yet to her that he knows that she's lied about Haldir.
That's right. Or Halbrand, not Haldir.
Sugar. I meant to say Halbrand. Sorry.
So here's where everything gets tricky, and I'm going to bring this up full screen because here's where things get tricky. And here's where the production is complicit. So there is the shot of the scroll, and you can see the icons next to the names.
Yes.
And let's see if we can get a bigger picture. So it's a huge... It's
on
a huge
Twitter, these people have these full from the production,
so
but there's online. You can grab the whole thing. There it is. That's it.
It's a whole thing. So
gosh, look at that.
In our Discord and on Twitter started deciphering all this text that came through. And sure enough, if we scroll in, they started looking at it and they started translating all of those words into the House of Indrith. And it turns out most of these names are made up. They are not in anywhere in Tolkien's writings. They made all of these names up.
Yep,
House
that's right.
of Maythrower, and they Maothred, Marthal, Mandor, Andorel.
Non-canonical names, and yet meant to have the flavor of the language of the time. Yeah.
Right. So no one's complaining about that. But so if we go to this screenshot, it turns out our intrepid Discord people found, you're not going to believe this, but this is a visual effects plate of the show. Everything on that scroll was changed in post-production. Again, look at that icon. It's kind of got wings on it. It kind of looks like a wolf's head, maybe. Is much different than what was shot on the day. So they changed the icons and the names that were on the paper. And here's another shot in post-production where they changed it yet again. Again, let's look at these two. You see that, folks? You see the icons changing?
Yeah. Oh, I do see that.
Those are two different icons on the same scroll on the same shot. Folks, Amazon was changing the meaning of these ruins. This is how important this scroll is, not only to this episode, but probably to the entire series. They changed the icons. 1, 2, 3. That's 3 different icons on the same scroll that they changed in post. Cliff,
I see.
Why would they change this 3 different times?
I don't know why they would bloody change it 3 different times, but I'm certainly intrigued by.
You seeing
Yeah,
what
I see
I'm
it.
seeing?
I
It's
am
changed
very
3
much.
different times. Here's
looking
where
right
the
at it.
story gets even trickier, folks.
Hmm.
Remember this?
What's that?
This is Halbrand's pouch.
Oh, that's right.
That is a shot from a TV. That's in the show, in the final show that we got. That's Halbrand's pouch. We still don't know what's in the pouch. We still don't know where he got it from. I don't remember if he is still in possession of that pouch.
Mm-hmm. That had the sigil on it. Yes.
That had the sigil. Well, here's an earlier shot in visual effects of that same pouch.
Yeah.
With a different
I
icon
see.
with 3 trees or 3 pieces of light or 3 flowers.
Oh, I see.
So, an earlier edit, they spent a lot of money on visual effects. An earlier edit required that this icon with the 3 trees or 3 flowers was on the pouch. It was so important. And then at some point in post-production, they changed it to this wolf's head in post-production.
It's supposed to be a bird flying through a ring. It looks like a wolf's head, but it's supposed to be the shape of a bird flying through a ring or something.
So
not a wolf's head.
So
am I right on that, chat?
So this icon, and I think this is what they try to imply in the show, but they don't do a very good job editing it together. But Galadriel sees this icon in the scroll in the library in Numenor after her ecstatic horse ride. She sees that icon, and then she sees the same icon from the scroll on Halbrand's little baggie. Kind of looks
it's
like
almost like a hummingbird. Yeah, almost.
So, but at some point, it was supposed to be this 3-flowered, 3-tree icon, and they changed it completely in both shots. So this is the attention to detail. This is why the show cost $1 billion to make for season 1, because every detail is there, and nothing is left to chance. They changed the graphics on the piece of paper scroll to match Halbrand's pouch. And the final version is this hummingbird / wolf's head / something that is on it. I am not the investigator. I am just reporting on what fans in our Discord, and this has been going on all week. So fans in the Discord have been all about this.
Yeah, fascinating, isn't it?
And
that is really fascinating.
So let's take it a step further.
Okay, are we to speculate that at some point they're like, we can't do this design anymore? We need to change all of it.
At some point they decided. I don't know what the significance of it is. But Cliff, you know how expensive it is to change one visual effect shot, let alone several.
Yes.
Every time they see that scroll, they have to change the visual effects now. So, and every time you see the pouch, which I think you see the pouch 4 or 5 times in different shots, they had to change that. So, no detail with that. But so check this out. The this was an interesting
Okay.
thing.
I know the whole
In,
audience can hear my cat meowing in the background.
in an
Sorry.
interview, Tyro, who plays Theo the child,
Yes.
says in an interview, says, you'll notice in some of the promo for Theo, he's wearing a jacket. And that jacket is someone's jacket who we don't get to meet.
Yep.
There's a lot of questions about that. And Theo has some about it as well. That's all I can say. I may have already said too much.
What if it's a jacket he inherited from his father? That's what I'm thinking.
Well, look at this, taken right from the
Yeah.
scroll. If we again, this is the whole scroll. If we scroll down, now let's look. There's an icon on the jacket. You can see it at the top half of your screen. There's an icon in the leather of the jacket that matches the scroll.
Yep.
One of the names on the scroll.
Oh my
One of the
goodness.
icons. It's not just the name, it's a family icon. And according to the fan translators, it is called the House of Vangelthread.
An invented, non-canonical branch of a Southland family that Tolkien never made up. But at least they're going for authenticity. They're going for the veracity of the details. That's cool that they're going for it. And also the added detail that those images, which are graphical, handwritten images that are more like an illumination on a script. Literally, that's an illumination on a script. That's literally what it's called. But to have it be culturally significant as an illumination, that it is sewn into the bloody fabric of his jacket, that is significant. It is a cultural sigil of his family line, and it's connected to perhaps a jacket that once belonged to his unknown father.
Do you think he knows his father, Cliff?
No, I had speculated for quite a long time that Arondir might be his secret father, and that Bronwyn never told Theo about it. But a lot of people online today disabused me of that notion, and I don't think that's exactly what is happening here.
So, so this account, I believe this is Drew Halbrand from who's active in our Discord and on X. Helped is kind of leading the charge, kind of converting all of the scrolls text. As you can see, House of Vangelthread, Vangelion the Strong, Vangelior of Minelglir.
Miniglir, can you say it? I don't know.
Yeah, Miniglir.
Yeah.
Look at that. So we've established that Theo is wearing a jacket
that belongs to the royal family line, literally.
That belongs to the royal family line, the House of Vangelthread. And again, this icon does not look like the pouch, any of the pouches that Halbrand has. This is a third icon on the scroll. It's House, and you said, and the second name of this is Vangelior of Miniglir. Is that what you said, Miniglir?
I think.
Well, let's go. What Miniglir happens to be the mountain range that makes up the southern border. Look at this picture from a Tolkien map. It clearly spells out Miniglir. And that is the mountain range.
That's the mountain range in the south of Mordor. Do you see that body of water? Do you see that body of water that is marked on the map?
Yeah.
That is the inland sea of Nurn. N-U-R-N. And there was a lot of, farming down there. That's where Sauron would do dry land farming for all of his orcs and his armies down in that area.
So Vangelior of Miniglir, and then his successor was Vangelioth of the Black Sword, Bane of the Mountain Orcs. The sword that unlocks the flood. The sword itself, the black sword, is the translated name of the third in line of the House of Vangelthred from the scroll. Vangelion the Strong, Vangelior of Miniglir, and then Vangelioth of the Black Sword, Bane of the Mountain Orcs. It's written there in smaller runes. And then we see the Black Sword there. And that's what it is. So when the crown goes to House Maythror, the color black enters the sigil. The Cirth suggests that dwarves have replaced the elves as a source of influence. From Maythred on
that
the sigil,
language is Kurth, not Cirth.
Kurth.
It's Kurth. Okay.
From Maythred on the sigil starts to get spikier, like the spikes added to the Gondorian architecture in the Jackson films.
Oh, okay. Super detailed investigation of this. Isn't it amazing?
That's right. One last point of interest. The sigil on Halbrand's pouch does not show up in the lineage of the Southlands.
No, the orcs didn't eat vegetables. They had to have cattle, and they used up near the volcano, it was all volcanic plateau, and they couldn't grow anything. So when Sauron needed food for his armies, it was all down there in the far, far southern and southeastern quadrants of Mordor, where they had any possible arable land and for cattle and stuff.
So it's interesting.
But it's interesting.
Someone found out that through the visual effects reel of one of the visual effects houses, we've just discovered that the icon on Halbrand's super secret pouch, which is as much of a MacGuffin as anything, was changed in post-production twice from what was filmed on set. It was changed.
Gosh, that's so
twice.
strange.
So that they've spent a lot of money on that stupid little pouch, changing it in post, and it never pays off in season 1. And then you get to the icon, and it's not even. The icon on the pouch is not even on the final version of the scroll.
Do you know what? You know what else is really interesting is that they invented an entire family line for people that never lived in those mountains. I mean, if they did live there, Professor Tolkien didn't chronicle their existence. He didn't write the chronicle of their lives and their history. And so they invented a big, huge entire piece of historical thread of all these, family line of people who lived in that area, which is on its own, okay, that's pretty cool, actually. That they put so much thought into it. I think it's pretty cool.
So there you go.
Yeah.
There are on this scroll that Galadriel finds in the archives of Numenor with Elendil. Galadriel looks at this scroll and makes her choices to install Halbrand. But out of the 3 different families that have a history of the Southlands, number 1, number 2, number 3, Halbrand's icon does not show up. But whose does show up is Theo's, or the jacket that Theo is wearing. And I'm sure his mother knows all the clothes that he is wearing and allows it. So, and then the scroll ends, thus ends the line of Indrith. At the very bottom of the scroll. So,
well, the whole dramatic moment was that there's no Halbrand, and the name Halbrand didn't appear on that scroll at all, which was the point.
Halbrand does not appear on the scroll. Not only does the name Halbrand never appear,
right?
The icon of Halbrand's pouch, which is supposedly his claim, that we are led to believe as an audience, we are led to believe that the icon that Galadriel sees on the pouch leads her to conclude that he is a king because they're in the prison together, and she's like, what's that icon? You're like, oh, you must be king. That's not true. It's not even on the scroll. So what games is Galadriel playing where she doesn't see Halbrand's name on the scroll? She doesn't even see his crest on the scroll. So why would they even try? Why would she even try to install him into the Southlands when she does not have any proof?
Well, I think it's ridiculous that it would even go that far. But the only moment when she asks him, he gives her a non-verbal, silent nod or just a look. And she takes that as the affirmative, that he's not willing to admit it. He's just not willing to admit it. And that's in her mind. He's not willing to admit it and go back and claim his claim to that bloodline, to that throne. And he, Halbrand, continues to let the misunderstanding escalate up to the point where she's fully believed this whole thing. And then he says, I didn't lie about it. You believed what you believed, and I didn't lie about it at all. As if that excuses him for the obstruction of truth, because he was completely withholding the truth. And at any time he had the chance, he could have said, yeah, I know what you're thinking, but that's not me.
Right. Well, Cliff, I just want to, like, as a filmmaker, you know how much things cost to change in post, and it's just crazy to me.
Okay, and Cecilia says that she had a strategy to have Halbrand as one more ally in the war against Sauron, and to have a unified Southland. Okay, Cecilia, you've hit it on the nose. If Galadriel was to say,
True.
wow, this guy really is the missing king of the Southlands, if I can restore him, I can have a great ally in what I know is the trouble that's coming, with Sauron still coming.
All right, this is starting to make sense, because all of this research that the fans are doing shows the attention to detail, where if we change that thing in post, we have to change all these other things in post. And this is why the show costs $1 billion. Like, normal TV shows don't get the opportunity in post-production to change this scroll different times. 3 different times. They changed the scroll, and they changed the crest of the icon of the family, and then land on the one that... So, I don't know if it's just misdirection, if they planned to... if this was misdirection, they planned on leaking things, they wanted to catch someone who was leaking it, or did they actually, consider all of this level of detail? But I feel like the scroll doesn't even matter anymore. Like, why spend... Cliff, the question to you is, why would they spend this amount of effort changing the scroll 3 or 4 times?
I do not know. I do not know why they would make that effort to change the scroll that many times, over and over and over. However, it might be because they couldn't decide if they were really going to do it that way. Maybe they decided, we're not going to end the story of, episode 7, episode 8. We're not going to end season 1 with that. We're going to end it with something else. And maybe they changed their mind at the last minute. I don't know. But otherwise, it doesn't make sense to me. I mean, if the plan was, let's do all this in previs, let's totally hire these artists, including John Howe, including these great talented people they hired. Let's have all the artists do all this way up front so we can settle on it and decide on it. Why would it need to change over and over and over again? I don't know.
I don't know.
I have a problem child.
Well, I can't
right
even
now,
hear
but
him. I want to hear
yeah,
him.
well, that's because he's begging to go outside and he's meowing at the door.
So the chat room seems to be encouraged by the level of sophistication and detail being considered in the production of the show, and this is led by J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay. The fact that they're using font faces and coming up with names and entire histories of leaders of the Southlands that have no that have no comparison because Tolkien never wrote it. But the fact that they've made this effort to create these names, create this history on paper, and then to keep changing the iconography so it matches other things that are changing in the edit.
Well, ultimately, we now know that this scroll is going to be more important to Theo than it would ever have been to Halbrand. I mean, the reason why we have all of this stuff with all those details is because we're talking about Theo's story now. And that scroll could be...
that scroll proves that Theo is the more important character than Halbrand.
Yeah. Yep. And Halbrand taking... Now, this is interesting. Halbrand coming along, which is just Sauron. Sauron pretending to be a person that's convenient for him, just so he could be there to start swimming out on that bloody raft. Or evidently, he was on a shipwreck with these people out on that bloody raft. But man, I still have so many unanswered questions about why did they do that? Why did they even do that on season 1?
In the chat room says, or maybe it's just not a Tolkien story. I think what we've just shown is it's actually more Tolkien. The fact that they're using the geography and building the history.
Well,
with the mountain
history.
Range and
history.
Calling it out. The history that Tolkien never wrote. They're expanding on it.
Tolkien did write that the Nazgul were great kings of men. And if we are supposed to follow this theory, and it is still a theory, but if our, and that's the word Theo can be found in theory, okay? Here's the Theo
They're not
theory.
that clever. Come on.
It is. Here we go. Now, here it is. Because we're looking at a future Nazgul, it would be appropriate that Theo, the character, is in a line of Southland kings and is going to be destined to be a king. And maybe Bronwyn has never told him that much about his father. And okay, intriguing.
It still doesn't make any sense why they spent more time with Halbrand and trying to install Halbrand on a land that Galadriel knows. It's almost like the show presents Galadriel as reading this scroll and then telling the audience something that's just not on the scroll.
Well,
Halbrand's logo, his arms, and his name is nowhere on the scroll. It's not even close. She doesn't see his arms logo on the scroll. So, but the show presents us as like she discovers the scroll, she reads it, she says, "Oh, that's the king," and then sets off on the adventure. I feel like that's just, I don't know if it's a mystery box or it's a misdirection or it's an intentional lie. Is it a MacGuffin? I don't know what it is, but it's just not true.
I know, and a lot of the stuff has been misdirection. A lot of the crappiest parts of the show and that's the best adjective I want to use right now. This stuff that was really annoying was the misdirection and the red herrings and the mystery boxing. But no, it's not. We've already established that they like to play fast and loose. Okay? They like to play fast and loose with J.R.R. Tolkien. And if that's what they're doing...
By necessity, because they don't have access to Silmarillion or History of Middle-earth. So by necessity, they have to come up with stuff. Also, Tolkien never wrote about the history of the kings of the Southlands. So this particular thing that we've talked about today, the history makes sense. I'm okay with the expansion of the lore in the way that they've gone about it. And I'm okay with the changes of it. I'm not okay with telling us, the audience, that Halbrand is this, and this is Halbrand's driving the story, and Halbrand needs to be installed as a king. But then when we actually look at the paper that they put on screen, that's not what it says, Galadriel. Why are you lying to us?
Galadriel was caught up in her own overzealous, overreaching assumption, and that suited Sauron. Sauron was like, great, let her take the broadest... Yeah, let her take the broadest assumption. Let her run with it. I'm going to keep playing it. And
but why did she take that assumption when... What I'm saying is she
know.
Didn't take an assumption. She literally looked at a scroll and lied to us. the audience, because what she says she's looking at is not what is on the paper. It's like looking at your driver's license. She saw his driver's license.
What she saw on the scroll was the refutation of his claim that he was connected to that line. Well, he never even made the claim, but that scroll proved that Halbrand was not in that line, and he's an imposter, and that's why Galadriel was like, "You're an imposter. You're a freaking imposter." And he was like, "Yep, I'm your bad boy, Sauron, and I think we should team up." And
would you read a book based on Patrick McKay and J.D. Payne's show?
No. He just said no. Big angry cat no. Just said no. He just said, that's another no.
Well,
that's two no's.
Speaking of talking animals, maybe it's time.
Oh, there's a third no.
To jump into green dragon gossip, Cliff. Should we do this?
Yeah, let's get to it. It's 6:15.
We got a little icon.
But I want to say one thing before we go to the green dragon gossip. Before we get to that gossip, I just want to say that it is the part of characterization of Galadriel that I appreciate the least. This particular thing we're talking about for the past 20 minutes, about how she got duped, how she made a big assumption about the lineage of that man, and she wanted that lineage to be true because it just made it convenient for her to, wow, this is our time. We can all get together now and fight against Sauron, you know? I do not believe that the character, the way that J.R.R. Tolkien wrote her, would ever be duped by him. And I do not think that she would ever make such a broad assumption and allow it to just go as an unanswered assumption. I don't think that Galadriel would ever intellectually operate that way. And it is outside the bounds. It is definitely within the bounds of her character to be angry, vengeful, and anything else. But I do not think it is within any possible characterization of her to possess that quality of being so dumb that she would be duped by Halbrand by him just giving her a look.
I don't think she was duped. I think she's just lying to the audience because she looks at a scroll and doesn't say what's really on it. She says something that's not on it, and we are meant as an audience. It's implied to us as an audience that what she says was on the scroll was actually on the scroll, and that's not the case. And I love the fact that our fans are going in deep, but all the technical details of the scroll and the icons and the naming conventions and the geography, that is Tolkien. Like, I'm not saying that it's more Tolkien than what Tolkien wrote himself. I'm saying Tolkien never wrote it. Okay? There's a big difference, and this is what we fans have to get over. If we're going to have a good time with the show or give it a fair chance, you have to get over the fact that Tolkien just didn't write in all the details of the Second Age.
He didn't write in those details.
It's very sparse. So,
you know what? In response to Jason Peterson, who's in our chat, you do not need to be here and be so unkind, Mr. Man. You are not here on our show to insult us or to insult the integrity of who we are as a community, and we will not tolerate that. But I will answer you, Jason Peterson. This live stream, he says, just proves why most of the Tolkien community doesn't respect the OneRing.net anymore. Well, you are full of it, and we don't need you here. We're having a great time having conversations about what is wrong in the Rings of Power, what is right in the Rings of Power, what we appreciate about it, what we don't appreciate about it. We have such an open bandwidth without having to resort to that kind of negativity and trolling, which is a lot of horse shit, and we don't want you here. So bye-bye. It's time for me to block you and say bye-bye. And also, after 25 years of volunteering, all of us are pure, unadulterated, doing it by the seat of our britches, volunteers because we're fans. And that is the community that we've built out of a very wholesome and open-handed and understanding place where people can talk and share and not feel like they're being attacked in any way whatsoever. So this business of you coming into our show to attack us is not going to stand. I'm not going to stand for it. This is not why I volunteered the past quarter of a century of my life to the study of J.R.R. Tolkien, to the study and analysis of popular culture and how they absorb and respond to the great works of the professor. His literature and his legacy is constantly celebrated with full, vocal, unadulterated joy of how much we love Professor Tolkien and support a fandom that can embrace his works on any level, any adaptation of any kind. And if you have a differing opinion about how we have lost any respect, you're living on planet Claire. Look it up. It's an old B-52 song. So while you're out there on planet Claire, you can just stay there because you're not in orbit with us. And we don't need you with your negativity and your horse shit. Not going to have it. Okay? Now, I speak with this kind of clarity and vocal, insistent authority that you're hearing in my voice because I've earned it. I have earned 25 years of respect from all the things that we've done, all the articles, all the joyful events, all the humanity of good people in good conscience and in good taste that we have brought together under our umbrella as a community. And we've done more for the J.R.R. Tolkien fandom than you, sir, could ever attempt to do on your own. And so, bye-bye, Felicia. Bye-bye. I'm done.
On with the show. Let's get some gossip in, Cliff. I will let you do the honors if you want to click on your mod powers. I think you have mod powers in the chat room.
I do.
So anyway, while Cliff is handling business there, folks, we were the first to report, I believe, several months ago, about 6 months ago now, that Gwaihir is rumored to be in the show. This was a huge scoop. It made it onto several other websites. We were told 6 months ago that there was an actor on set speaking lines with the name of Eagle or Gwaihir. I don't know, but we're told that a great eagle, and maybe even the great eagle, is going to finally speak, and that is canon to Tolkien. And in fact, I still continue to champion that the weirder this show can get, the better it will be. If this show can embrace the weirder parts, the thinking fox, the talking animals, the shape-shifting Beorn people, the werewolf, the vampire Sauron, everything that's weird in Tolkien, if this show can embrace that, it's going to be a better show. So this is exciting because we've had two different people in the last week say a certain person is the voice of Gwaihir. We did some digging and we found, or Discord found, the community has found some audio clips of who we think the actor is for Gwaihir. I'm going to leave this on screen. Again, this is from a demo reel of the voice actor's work. So this is not dialogue from Rings of Power. I'm going to put this on screen and let's listen to who we think the voice of Gwaihir is.
Earthquakes occur when masses of rock suddenly shift below the Earth's surface. Hundreds of little earthquakes shake the planet every day, but most pass unnoticed. They usually occur along the boundaries of the thin plates that cover the Earth like an eggshell. When the plate's motion is blocked, stress builds up. Finally, the fault gives way.
Oh, yeah.
Walking somewhat slowly by reason of his concentration, the boy, an ancient man in some phases of thought, much younger than his years in others, was overtaken by a light-footed pedestrian, whom, notwithstanding the gloom, he could perceive to be wearing an extraordinarily tall hat, a swallow that danced madly and threw around scintillations of skylight, as its owner swung along upon a pair of thin legs and noiseless boots. Jude, beginning to feel lonely, endeavoured to keep up with him.
Well, my man, I'm in a hurry, so you'll have to walk pretty fast if you want to keep alongside of me. Do you know who I am?
Yes, I think. Physician Vilbert?
I'm known everywhere, I see.
That comes of being a public benefactor. Vilbert was an itinerant quack doctor, well known to the rustic population and absolutely unknown to everybody else.
I love that someone said C3PO. Otaku Senpai just invoked Anthony Daniels. And you know what? Maybe he is somewhere in that vocal range of Anthony Daniels, but if you're going to have him be an eagle, that's a really cool, very British voice, I guess. It's like
it is C3PO. Yeah, it's an Anthony Daniels and remember Anthony Daniels was Legolas in the old cartoons.
Yes, he was. I can imagine them doing some vocal effects or some post-production trickery to make an eagle sound like he's noble and like that kind of quality of maybe a bit of an aristocracy kind of feeling. He's the Lord of the Eagles. He might have that aristocratic air of being the Lord of all eagles. Wouldn't that be interesting? Yeah, I like it. I think it's great.
Is it lighter in intonation than you expect from a great eagle? I think a lot of people.
It is
at first in my mind's eye. I think a lot of people see when they hear the elders, the elder statesmen of any of the races of animals, they hear a deep, brooding voice, like a commanding, dark voice. And I think, let me play this one again.
You should play the voice of Peter Jackson never made this creative decision, and he made
April
6 entire films.
1906.
Okay.
California's 6. San Andreas Fault
and
snapped.
He avoided
shaking San Francisco
that's the word I want to use.
For nearly 6
Peter Jackson avoided making the creative decision. It was tricky enough to get the spiders to have a voice, and for him to do that, the spiders had a voice only when Bilbo put on the ring.
When the ring was on.
Yeah. And now for the Eagles, they appeared in all Lord of the Rings movies, all Hobbit movies, left and right. They're in 6 movies. They never talk. And so Peter dodged that bullet of how do you make an audience believe that the eagle is going to actually talk like that and not have it just be, Chronicles of Narnia, and have it just feel like a kid's fantasy. It is a challenge, an artistic challenge. So I don't know what they're going to do next, but I'm not surprised that if this guy we're listening to really is going to be the voice actor for the eagle, the Lord of the Eagles, Gwaihir, it's not so different from the voice actor in 1977 in that animated Hobbit film. He sounded not so different from that, really.
Yeah, let me play a clip once again.
9 seconds. When the trembling stops, the disaster is only beginning. Gas lines rupture, setting off massive fires.
Isn't that weird, Laurent? And Laurent makes a really interesting point. In Hollywood, noble means English, and
well, this is an English story, and most of the actors are English. But
I mean, it is typical. It's also a typical thing that if you're looking for an aristocratic or an upper echelon royalty type of thing, even when they do great films about the French Revolution, they're British actors who are playing Napoleon or British actors playing Marie Antoinette.
Joaquin Phoenix.
Now it's Joaquin Phoenix who has No one's got a French accent. Hey, that upcoming Ridley Scott movie, I didn't hear a single bloody French accent anywhere.
No,
Anywhere. And that
I
it holds
like this
true.
voice. Look, a bird would
It's-
not have a
it's
deep
weird,
voice.
but there's this
there are no birds
association
with deep voices. Have you heard a bird try to talk? Like whether it's a macaw or a parrot or a shoebill. Like birds don't have deep voices. So when I hear this voice, I love it.
No,
I think
not
it's
usually.
appropriate for an eagle. I think it's appropriate for a bird, and I love it. I think the accent is great for the eagle, and it does. I think Cliff, you're on point when you say it reminds you of the old Lord of the Rings and Hobbit cartoons, and
It does.
I think the show would benefit from a little more fun and fancy free. If you're gonna have talking eagles,
Right?
make it fun.
Make it fun. You know, they're terrified of getting into that lane where it's going to look like C.S. Lewis. They're terrified of it being like that. So they're probably not going to do that. But, you know, in the 1977 Hobbit, the actor who did the Lord of the Eagles, his quote, and I remember his quote, was just like this. He says, and I'm going to mimic his voice. This is exactly how the Lord of the Eagles sounded in 1977. I have not forgotten the arrow that brought me down many years ago. I have not forgotten the wizard who found me and healed my wound. Farewell, wherever you fare. To your Ares receive you at the journey's end. And then he flies off. That's it. That's all the dialogue of Gwaihir, Lord of the Eagles. And if you go listen to the original recordings on Disneyland Records, or if you go and watch the original film on DVD, you'll be like, whoa, Clifford, that is what that eagle sounded like. So, you know.
Well, I'm excited.
Do?
I love that voice. I love the voice. I love the actor. I think it works, especially if they do some modulation in post. You know, with the screeches of an eagle. Remember, everyone knows what an eagle sounds like when it screeches in the air, right? So you can picture that it comes down and starts to have a conversation with someone.
When it comes to unexpected voice casting and animation, this has been going on for years. When Beauty and the Beast came out, everyone laughed that Robbie Benson, of all people, Robbie Benson was going to be the voice of the Beast. And that's what they did in post-production. They did exactly what you said. They completely altered Robbie Benson's voice so he could voice the Beast. So it's just a thing. They will alter it the way they need to. So
anyway, the initial news of Gwaihir made the rounds, got everybody excited. Hearing a voice possibly attached, that's the Green Dragon gossip. Hearing this,
I like his voice actually.
Potentially
cool.
attached. I love his accent. I think the accent and the voice works for an eagle, and thumbs up.
I do
and
too.
I'm liking the direction of where this show is going.
I do too.
Based on that Green Dragon gossip.
I like the Green Dragon gossip about Tom Bombadil showing up. I love all that gossip we have about how many new Ents and Entwives we might be rumored to be seeing in season 2. But it's more interesting. This is one of the more interesting things because I get a strong sense that Peter Jackson and New Line Cinema avoided that creative choice for so many films. They avoided it
because they were making a human story
eagle.
Again. Yeah. The weirder that this show gets, I think it was a disservice to not show how. I think it was a disservice in season 1 to avoid magic more often in the show. Like we just want to be mad. Cliff, I've got one more piece of Green Dragon gossip, and this isn't as good, and it's not as fun. And maybe I'm reading the tea leaves wrong. You know what? I probably am, and I'd love to get your opinion on these tea leaves because I have an opinion, but the gossip is tough. It's tough. So I'm just gonna get into it, and then Cliff, you can help me respond. So the Green Dragon gossip again, unconfirmed. That was an unconfirmed
I like our new graphic,
on
by the way. The little
Voice.
graphic we have here is cute. The Green
Right?
Dragon Gossip. I like that. That's cool.
So Green Dragon Gossip is unconfirmed reports, but these are little whispers that we hear on the air. We used to, and if the whispers get a little more, then we start reporting on spy reports on the website. But this is just for conversation because these are things that we are hearing from people. Cliff, it was reported this week. Good Omens looks like it's going to get a season 3 renewal at Amazon. But Amazon is letting the showrunner go. Good Omens, of
that's
course,
news.
That's
news.
That is Neil Gaiman's huge show. He really wants to do season 3. Remember, Good Omens was a book by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman. Terry, rest in peace. And so they adapted the book into season 1. Season 2 is a whole new story written by Neil Gaiman, in coordination with the family, the estate Terry Pratchett. This is Neil Gaiman's baby. It's his passion. He voluntarily chose to further the story of Good Omens. So this really is a passion project of new work, new storytelling.
Yeah.
Not adaptation.
And
Good Omens season 2 was new work.
It is just hugely successful. Now take a look at how suddenly, American Gods had been on the air, and I think it was on USA for quite a while, and that was successful. It really was successful, but not as much as The Sandman and Good Omens. Those appeared right when American Gods was winding down. They weren't going to have any more seasons of that. And now here comes Neil Gaiman again with 2 different shows on 2 different streaming platforms, the biggest ones of all, Netflix and Prime Video. And they're huge successes. Hugely successful.
All of them. Neil
Both
Gaiman
of them, hugely successful.
Is hitting gold.
He is. This is his time now.
It's interesting, Cliff. Season 2 was a huge success. It trended. It was like -- 1 in the world for a whole week. Amazon.
Even the Hillywood sisters did a great parody of
with Neil.
And what Neil Gaiman showed up and is in the Hillywood sisters parody YouTube video, which is hilarious and really well done.
So there weren't a lot of complaints. I would say, Cliff, would you say that Good Omens season 2 got fewer complaints than Wheel of Time or Rings of Power?
Complaints? No, the fandom loved it. No, the fandom loved season 2 of Good Omens, and they ate it up. I'm an original novel fan. My place in absorbing Good Omens was way back in the late 80s, early 90s, when I was just reading Terry Pratchett and reading everything Neil Gaiman that I could get my hands on. Big fan of the Sandman comic books, and also some other interesting dark things that Neil Gaiman was writing, including Black Orchid and some other stories.
So what do you make of this? You have a hit show that the fans love, that there aren't any complaints. Why would the showrunner?
I have no idea. I do not understand it. And I've been thinking about that. It is a wildly successful show. There hasn't been any clap back from the fandom, and you'd say maybe season 2 of Good Omens was in more danger than anything else for being something that would deviate from the original book, and that's the catchphrase in the air right now. Oh, you deviated from the original book. How dare you? Oh my goodness. That's why we disrespect you, because you've deviated from the book. Ooh, naughty, naughty. Okay,
well,
so
there
it's
was
all
no
like
book
that now,
to
all right?
deviate from on season 2. So
exactly, in season 2 of Good Omens, it was all new material, and it was wildly successful. There was no polarization in the fandom. The fandom went nuts for it. They were so happy for it. Therefore, I cannot ascribe to the sudden firing of this showrunner any reason that makes sense. I cannot ascribe to the sudden departure of this showrunner anything that remotely makes sense. Like, were there internal problems? Neil hasn't said anything online, and he's been very vocal about what a pleasure it's been working with the team on all these productions. We didn't have any angle on this. So Justin, I really do not know what kind of
Well,
weird things are behind the scenes here. I don't know.
Here's the other news, and this is where the Green Dragon gossip really gets gossipy, folks. Okay? Green Dragon gossip really gets gossipy. Last week, it was announced that Lord of the Rings Rings of Power showrunners got new agents.
Uh-oh.
J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay have new representation in Hollywood. They have new agents and managers.
Oh, damn.
It is my
we're in
understanding.
trouble.
It is my understanding that you only get new agents when you're trying to get new work.
Well, are you trying to suggest
And it is
that...
my understanding that
dear.
it was presented to us that Rings of Power is guaranteed 5 seasons, maybe spin-offs, but guaranteed 5 seasons. They know what the last shot is going to be in the entire series. They have a plan the whole way. And it's taken 2 years of production per season for season 1 and season 2. So 5 seasons, 2 years. That's like 10 years of life. I believe that Patrick McKay and J.D. Payne should be busy for 10 years.
Yeah.
They
So why are
haven't
they
even
looking for new
delivered
work?
season 2. And remember, they've been on strike with the WGA since early this year, since March or April of this year. So they've been on strike. They've supposedly been out of the loop on the show. They have not been working. They have not been looking at edits. They have not been checking in with production when they finished filming. There's chaos in the post-production room. There's internal fights going on in the edit bay of what storyline gets more preference. And because the showrunners have been on strike, there has been no leadership. So supposedly, if they were supposed to tell us 5 seasons, they were supposed to be in a job for 10 years. Why are they signing with new agents with the expectation that they're trying to get new work?
Boy, is that a weird question. And if your speculation is to be taken to another natural extent of the hypothetical, are you suggesting that they're just looking to get out of Rings of Power and go to some other production? Hypothetically speaking, entirely. Is that what you're trying to say?
I mean, Cliff, talk to me. What does it mean when someone gets a new agent? Are they not happy with the old agent? Like, they got the golden ticket. They got their Rings of Power show. They have nothing on their resume, and suddenly they are showrunners for a $1 billion Lord of the Rings TV series. That is the golden bag.
Well, then maybe that's why they're seeking new representation, is because things in their lives are different now, and they're at that level now. And they're ready to have an agent who will help them get into the meetings that they want to get into for the next level of stuff they want to do.
But shouldn't they be busy with Rings of Power right now?
Instead of looking for a new job? Maybe. Well, no, maybe they are working, and that won't change. Hypothetically, let's just say in very careful language, if you're following this hypothetical to I'm actually thinking right now that the high profile that they've gotten from the Rings of Power is only going to continue to be more high profile, and it is not surprising that they would get signed up at CAA. It's just not surprising. It may or may not be a sign that they're looking for other work, but it certainly means that because of the Rings of Power, they're not staying where they were. With the resources of the previous agent, they've leveled up. And they're not staying with the previous agent, maybe because they just didn't have the scope or the resources to get where they want to go for some future things. So,
Cliff,
I don't know.
Does it make you nervous that within the same week, Amazon announced that they let go of the showrunner of their other big fan show, Good Omens? And then suddenly,
that's weird.
Rings of Power showrunners have new agents. So
Yep.
one showrunner is let go
It's weird.
on Good Omens, and suddenly our showrunners
Yes.
have new agents and possibly are looking for new work.
And the strike with the Screen Actors Guild still not resolved, but the writer's strike only recently having been resolved. That has a big part of it too. I wonder what the heck is going on. Are we going to get
Cliff,
answers? Are we going to get clear answers from the studio?
Well,
about this?
the Green Dragon gossip, Cliff, is
Well, it's gossip.
all
yes.
of the writers
gossip.
and showrunners that have been on strike for 6 months have spent the last couple weeks announcing that they're happy to return to work. Neil Gaiman announced he's happy to put his pen to paper again. He's back at work. Every big showrunner that was on a show that got paused has announced in the last 2 weeks, I'm happy to be back at work. I'm back at work. We're back at work again. Not J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay. There has been no confirmation that they've been back to work. I'm trying to get confirmation from anybody that they're back to work. And all I'm getting is no comment, no comment. Haven't heard anything. No comment. We have spies everywhere. In the edit bays, in the production, in marketing, in PR, at the studio level, agents, managers. We have spies, the CAA. We have
Yes, we do. We have spies everywhere, from the stunt performers to the top of the food chain. Everybody in between. Yes.
We have not been able to get a confirmation from anybody off the record or on the record that J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay have returned to work. And then, at the same time that even this weekend, there's no confirmation and no comment that they're back to work. And then this last week, it announced that they've got new representation. And then a few days later, the Good Omens showrunner has been let go. Cliff, am I reading the tea leaves?
Yeah, you're at this moment, you are a little bit too willing to read into the tea leaves, but maybe if this is any indicator of the barometric pressure changing over there in England or with whatever Prime Video is doing, because they're so terribly secretive about everything. We will find out soon. If this is an indicator of what you're suggesting it might be, we'll probably find out soon, within a few months.
This is all Green Dragon gossip. I'm reading the tea leaves.
Super gossip.
And I don't know how to read it any other way because
I don't know
no
either.
one in town is telling us that they're back to work, helping to solve all of the problems in the edit bay, helping to guide the writer's room for the reshoots that are required for any big shows.
Yep. A lot of reshoots going to have to come up now. And as soon as this WGA thing... Now, the question is, Otaku Senpai, have the WGA votes been tallied and announced?
Yes.
I think they did.
It's confirmed
they did.
like 99% or something, like 95%.
Yep.
So,
great.
I guess, is it good news? Is it bad news? How do we feel? Like, I don't like the idea of a showrunner getting bounced before they get to finish their season and finish the story that they want to tell.
I don't think the production deserves to have that kind of chaos, but the production has already suffered so much chaos. Being uprooted from New Zealand, leaving the infrastructure that they'd laid down in New Zealand, trekking across the world to whole new studios that are being freshly built at the same time they're being used. The paint is still fresh.
They're always going to have credit on the show. They're always going to be an executive producer. It's always going to say created by J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay. They will always have a credit. But as far as work getting done,
I wonder.
Why do they have new
what's
agents?
Going on there.
And why does another show get their showrunner bounced? I don't know. I'm just asking questions. I'm also asking.
It's gossipy on the gossipy side
it's the Green Dragon gossip. It's the Green Dragon gossip.
I get it. I get it. But
two more notes of gossip. on related to this.
But we will find out soon. If there's something to find out,
I hope
we
so.
will
I don't
find
know.
out soon.
They won't tell. No one's saying nothing. We can report now that J.A. Bayona, the wonderful director of the 2-part pilot, episode 1 and 2 of Rings of Power, an accomplished director who discovered Tom Holland and put him in his first movie, J.A. Bayona has signed an overall deal with Netflix, and he is now a Netflix director. I believe this means that J.A. Bayona will not be returning to Rings of Power anytime soon. Well, I mean, we already knew that he was not directing anything in season 2, but there was a hope that maybe he would be inspired to return in season 3 or future episodes. But it looks like J.A. Bayona is thrown in with Netflix, and it doesn't look like he'll be returning to Rings of Power.
All the more reason for Prime Video to look at Viggo Mortensen as a potential director yet again. Yes.
On the flip side, while Netflix stole Bayona from Amazon, the reverse happened, and Amazon has now signed Mike Flanagan to a long-term deal. Mike Flanagan, of course, did The Haunting of Hill House. He did recently The House of the Fall of Usher, Fall of the House of Usher.
The Fall of the House of Usher, yes.
He did Doctor Sleep, the sequel to The Shining, which is incredible.
I enjoyed that movie.
Usher is one of my favorite shows of the last 10 years. It's on Netflix now. All of Mike Flanagan's stuff on Netflix is incredible. Mike Flanagan, of course, is a horror director. Peter Jackson was a horror director. I think there's something important that horror directors bring to the table when tackling Tolkien. And if Amazon is actually getting rid of showrunners, as we just showed, and if the current showrunners, J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay, are looking for new work with new agents, and Amazon has just hired Mike Flanagan, one of the most in-demand directors in the business.
Okay. Well, Mr. Nolan, Mr. Flanagan, and Mr. Mortensen, please directly call the offices of Prime Video so that you can come in and start directing Rings of Power seasons 3, 4, and 5. Okay?
So, yeah, I don't
Calling
know.
all directors.
I don't know. So that's the Green Dragon gossip.
Okay.
To recap, we've got a potential voice of Gwaihir. He sounds amazing. And to recap, there's big movements in the showrunner business. And we don't know how it's going to shake out, but we're just giving you the information so you guys can stay up to date and start to think about how you feel if hard decisions are actually made real soon.
Indeed. We're going to find out much more very, very soon. I hope it's not too chaotic, because I do not want to see the production suffer from that kind of internal strain, actually. But what a show. What an interesting show this week. And what a great conversation with everyone, except for Felicia, who we kicked out of the chat. And we had a great chat with everybody. It was good to have everyone join us. Yeah, you know what? Hey, I'm with you during the 7th. I don't know what to think about season 2. I'm with you during the 7th.
And everything can change.
I do not know what to think about what's going to happen.
Here's the thing. We spent the majority of the show showing you how in post-production they changed the letters on the scroll. They changed the icon on Halbrand's pouch.
Yeah.
And last week we told you that they changed the entire lead actor of Fall of the House of Usher. Frank Langella had filmed 80% of the show, and then they fired him, and they got Bruce Greenwood, and they shot him on green screen and replaced him.
You know how legendary Frank Langella is? I mean, he was Dracula. He played Richard Nixon in Frost Nixon. He's such an amazing actor.
He would have been great in the show, and I understand why they did it. And I understand what he brought to the table, and I understand what Bruce Greenwood is great. But I'm telling you, in a show the size of Rings of Power with the budget that they have, upwards of $500 million for season 2,
Yeah.
They can replace actors. They can change entire storylines. They can even change the icon on the pouch and the text on a scroll. I'm telling you that everything's on the table for changing. If the edit isn't working, JD Payne and Patrick McKay can go in and they can plan on reshooting it. If they bring in a new showrunner right now and say, hey, you should change this whole thing and replace that actor, it is quite possible that they could do that. The technology exists and the budget is there. So everything's on the table, and this is what I mean when we hear about leaks and rumors. Everything can change. Everything.
It can.
And that's our show.
Sure can. Great show tonight. Wheat Bix is asking $500 million for season 2. When was that released? Well, I mean,
a future episode. We'll go into more details on
okay.
on we've heard a lot. Remember, we went on strike with the writers this whole summer on the leaks. Remember, we haven't leaked much of anything all year because we stand in solidarity with the writers, and now we stand in solidarity with Sean Astin and the actors to get a fair deal. And once all of this union striking is behind us, boy, do we have a lot of information for you. But that'll come in the future.
I am fascinated by the future reporting that we're going to do. Very fascinated by that. Guys, thank you for joining us on a wonderful edition of Torn Tuesday. You have just spent the past hour and 55 minutes with Justin Sewell right over there. And that's Justin right there. And I'm Clifford Broadway. Didn't get to introduce myself at the top of the show, but hey, I'm Clifford, the Big Red Dog. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter, and probably not long at Twitter. I'm going to go and leave and go to some other platform. But I'm at QuickBeam2000, and I hope to replicate that at Blue Sky. And thanks for joining us, everyone. Beautiful, beautiful folks. There's Paul. Hey, Paul Vincenti's in the chat. And hello, it's so good to have you folks. Pipsky, you're the best. My old high school friend, Debbie, she was in the chat. That was cool. Super cool, by the way. We're going to see you guys next Tuesday at 5 p.m. Pacific time. Same. Oh, wait. Well, you know what? I don't know. I mean, I might be sitting here for joining the show for maybe 3 or 4 minutes while I'm putting on makeup and a costume, because it's going to be Halloween next Tuesday. And if Justin feels like he wants to do the show without me, I'm going to be running around doing Halloween stuff. And I'm also assuming and a lot of folks migrated to Twitch. Yeah, Twitch is great. And you guys, are you going to be at
our North
Halloween
Star
parties next week and trick-or-treating?
Our North Star is just a good show. We don't want anything to fail. We want everyone to succeed. We want everything to be the best it can be. That's it. That's all.
I hope so.
Entertain us.
Yeah. Make a great adaptation.
Something.
Yes, that's what I want too. So I may or may not poke my head in the door, but you guys have a safe Halloween, have a great weekend, and have a great Samhain if you're celebrating, or a great Halloween holiday with your friends and family. And be safe. Please be safe. Until then, we will see you next week at theonering.net. And as I like to say at the close of every show, good night and good luck. A little bit of Edward R. Murrow for you. Better yet, buenos noches y buena suerte. Bye-bye, everyone.